welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. Or maybe I should actually, now that I think about it, maybe I should start this podcast by going, "Hi, girl."
Hey girl, hey.
Yeah. So this is, as I said, Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. And my guest today is the author of a book that once we get into it, you'll kind of understand why I made that joke. It was a really good book. I read it in almost one sitting.
No.
Yes, yes. And I had so much fun with it, and I think I could tell that you had a lot of fun writing it. I mean, unless I'm wrong, please let me know if I missed out on something there.
Yeah. No, well, hi. Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. And yeah, I'm Sarah Flocken. I'm the
Yeah, I
author
was
of
I was
Be
just about to
Well.
say, I'm like, introduce yourself. Tell us about this book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Sarah,
I'm so
welcome.
used to doing it. It's okay. Hi.
It's great. Yes.
Hi, Jessica. My name is Sarah Flocken. I am the author of Be Well, the book that Jessica is talking about. I am honored that you read it in almost one sitting because that just speaks volumes to me. Volumes, that's a pun. Ha ha ha. So I did have a lot of fun writing this book. So a little bit of like if you ask me what my book is about, I've memorized the spiel at this point. Be Well is the story of an awkward young woman who graduates straight into the recession in 2009 in Los Angeles, and she is desperate to avoid moving back to her desert hometown to live with her mother, who's a car saleswoman but overeducated and underemployed, and living in the shadow of her televangelist father. And so, in order to avoid that and get the LA lifestyle she wants, she does increasingly desperate and stupid things and gets involved with a maybe cult along the way. I like to say that Be Well is a look at how easy it is to believe unquestioningly in something when you perceive your circumstances as
Yeah.
desperate. Because you always wonder, like, how do otherwise smart people get so sucked into a belief system or something cultish that makes you think, like, what? Why? And so, I sought to explore that in this book. But like you also said, I wanted to make it funny. I wanted readers to have a good time reading it while experiencing those gut punch emotions and getting sucked into this story. A little bit about me, my background. In addition to my day job as a public relations person, I have a business called SLH Communications, which stands for Sound Like a Human. And yes, I did come up with that business name before generative AI was a thing. So go me.
Wow, good for
Um,
you.
Thanks.
You were
Yeah.
like on trend before trend, sort of. Yeah.
On trend before. You know what? You may have just come up with my new tagline.
That's such a, I feel like that's such a corporate tagline.
Yeah.
Like when you read like these corporate speech buzzwords, but
Yeah.
there's more wellness buzzwords in your book.
Oh
So
my God.
continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound like a
Yeah.
human. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my business tagline. But in addition to my day job, I also have a background in improv comedy. I've been doing improv since I was a teenager. And I've done stand up, I've done sketch writing, I have credits worldwide. I also am the host of San Diego Pundemonium, which is a pun contest. I'm also a competitive punner, which is a whole separate thing that I can tell you about later in this
Let's
interview.
actually, I'm going to put a pin in that and say we'd like to have you back for another episode just about that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I was writing this book, I found myself tapping into my improv brain a lot. This is how I managed to make a completely bonkers gonzo premise into a story that moves forward with real human emotion. A lot of time, it was very easy for some of these characters to become caricatures, like the televangelist dad, the wellness guru, folks like that. It's very easy for these folks to become cartoons, but I found myself, really, I mean, this book went through a lot of revisions And so while in the revision process, a lot of the times I was thinking, okay, if this is true, if this weird, absurd thing is true in the universe of this book, what else is true? That is a big improv principle. It's related to the whole idea of yes and of like, okay, accept the truth that your partner is bringing to the scene, but then expand on it. So if this is true, then what else is true helps you kind of break out of comedic ruts and keep things from getting too repetitive or cartoonish. It kind of helps bring depth to scenes and make them funnier in the process. So I was using that a lot of the time when I wrote this book, while also throwing in plenty of, elder millennial shibboleths. Like I'm sure you recognize the digital camera strap around your wrist. Boy, remember when we used to carry those everywhere? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that
no,
yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, that is yeah. I forget what question I was answering, but yeah, I think it was tell me about yourself.
That was it. No, that was it. Well, you do a really good job, and I could almost see this as like, I don't want to say like an art house movie in the 90s or the early 2000s, but it's one of those books that when you're reading it, you are kind of like laughing at some of those larger than life caricatures,
Oh yeah.
but it's also super, super relevant because one of the things I really got out of it was that like people really want to be seen. And
Hmm.
Anne, the main character, she really, really wanted to be seen.
Hmm.
As you said, she graduated during the Great Recession, and you get that she struggled with a lot of self-image,
Hmm.
self-doubt. A lot of
Yep.
that comes from bullying when she
Hmm.
was younger. A lot of it comes from just kind of like her upbringing in
Yeah.
general. And she really just wants this job so she can live with her cool roommate.
Yeah.
um like she wants to be with the cool crowd. She wants to be with with the people who she feels are going to keep her on the up and up, gonna be the people who like are gonna maybe like introduce her to possibly a romantic interest. She wants to be like that magnet, right? Like that
Yeah.
magnet
Yeah.
that brings in
Hmm.
the interest. And I have a lot of like conflicting feelings about the friend that she wants to live in, like live with.
Hmm.
Like on one hand, this friend is like, hey girl, I want to live in this swanky apartment. You gotta be able to pay your part of the rent, which yeah,
Right.
fair, absolutely. But on the other hand, the more I got to know Anne, the more I kind of was like, does she have no idea how toxic her family is? She's like saying to her at one point, like, go ask your father for money. And I
Hmm.
don't want to talk about how that went because that's for the reader to find out.
Yeah.
But it's like you kind of like I'm kind of wondering like, well, Anne, how good is this friend? But there is so much desperation there.
Hmm.
And she really wants to be seen. And when, a job interview fails, she runs into what seems to be the breeziest, crunchiest, hippie woman with all the silver rings and the hair and, smells perfect, who calls her Annalise, which is her full
Her given
name.
name.
And she's
Yeah. But
never been called Annalise before. And, Annalise feels like somebody she wants to be.
hmm
And she
her
gets
aspirational alter ego.
an aspirational alter ego, and she gets drawn into a lot of the wellness community, which on one hand, it works for her in some ways. On the other hand, it undermines her in ways she's not realizing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when you shaped that part and her introduction to the wellness community and Sagebrush, I believe it was called,
Yep,
right?
sagebrush.
Uh,
Yes.
how much research did you do? I also want to ask you, you used the word cultish earlier. Have you read that book by
Oh,
Amanda
yes.
Montell
Oh, yes,
because
I have.
yeah,
I,
I don't hear it often with people who have not used it. So did that shape some of your research as well?
yes, yeah. So I did, big fan of Amanda Montell and everything that she has to say about basically how cultish America is prone to be. Like, no matter your flavor, like people in America are really prone to getting cultishly drawn into something. And that is, yeah, I was inspired by a lot of what she wrote to kind of like explore that angle as I was writing and revising Be Well. And also I love hearing other people talk about their impressions of the characters and their impressions. Like, it was just like, yeah, like Anne just wants to be seen. That's so spot on. So a lot of, this book went through so many iterations, but when it came time to exploring the wellness side of things that Anne gets sucked into, like obviously, just first of all, caveat, I am a yoga girl. I am a yoga person. I love it. I go. I also am totally not opposed to Eastern medicine. I have done acupuncture and all these things. I have an acupressure mat at home. It's just like, I have nothing against any of like the more of the non-traditional wellness stuff. However, I do believe that it is possible to go very far down a rabbit hole of anything. And, I lived in LA for a while. I live in San Diego right now. Like, I have met some people who are like, whoa, way into like they are cartoons of human beings. Also, another thing that kind of informed this book during the pandemic, I watched a lot of cult documentaries, like so many cult documentaries. Like Breath of Fire was a huge influence on like if you Guru Jagat and from Breath of Fire and Tori, they're they exist, I think, in the same universe. The Kundalini yoga stuff, even just like the sort of the language that people use, from like Love Has Won, the Mother God cult, like a lot of this stuff that's very based on, like it's almost always based on self-improvement. But then, it starts to get a little interesting when it's like, okay, self-improvement at the cost of what? And anyway, I don't want to give too much away, but yes, sagebrush itself, like it's an amalgamation of multiple sort of wellness and holistic healing kind of places that I have, encountered throughout my life. Actually, at this point, the word sagebrush has become of an adjective, a verb, like of all sorts of descriptors in our house, like, and among my friends now too, who have read the book and who have read advanced copies, like they'll be like, oh, I went to the most sagebrush ass place today. Like, or like, oh, I met this person who is just, oh, they are the most sagebrush individual I have ever met, So that's been kind of fun introducing that bit of vocabulary to my circle. But I have done I've done a crystal healing session. I have done sound baths. I have done a lot of this stuff. And, it's like, again, there's benefits to a lot of this thing, but then there's also a scene, in which they're doing an intake at Sagebrush where it's like, whoa, okay, I don't think you're qualified to do any of this stuff, but people put their faith in it so wholeheartedly. And a lot of the time too, you'll see this with one of the characters, Alyssa. Alyssa has she did 1 year of medical school, lost faith in Western medicine, and is now completely, bless her heart, really into some questionable stuff. And I see a lot of people in my life were the same way. Like they have understandably like lost faith in the American medical system, the health, like mostly thanks to health insurance. All of my, doctor friends are like, yeah, we hate health insurance too. We hate how everything is set up, but people turn to these kinds of things because it's easier to access in some ways than actual health care. So, and again, this is something to reveal when later in the book, but a lot of, the research for this was a lot of just like, talking to folks who have been, involved in this kind of thing. I have, I experienced a bit of this for myself. And then on the other side of the culty coin, the televangelist stuff. I grew up around a lot of evangelical folks. So this is stuff that I have lived and seen. And Anne's dad, the televangelist, like he is just basically a version of some of the worst pastors I encountered on steroids, and I got to, some of the things he said are just transmuted versions of some actual things I saw and heard and even partook in when I was in my middle and high school years. So that is, again, some of this is lived experience, some of this is research, some of this is, and also, yes, for other scenes involving, we'll say, the justice system, I did have to do some interviews and do a lot of rabbit hole research about, the consequences of certain actions. Not going to say what those actions are, but things like that. And it was a very interesting time doing the research for this book, but it was also, again, there's some storytelling involved. And actually, the premise of the way everybody is like, how did you get started writing this book? And I was like, how the heck did you ever, how did this story originate? Story actually originated, I wanted to write a novel for years, but I'm a perfectionist and I never had an idea that I like sat down on my own and was like, no, 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 it's not perfect the first time I wrote it, so therefore I will not pursue it. Well, that's bullshit. That's not how we write a book. So what I ended up doing was I took a class called How to Start a Novel through UC San Diego Extension. And we did an exercise where you had, a set amount of time to write down a bunch of things that interested you. And then you had to circle the three that popped out to you most. And I think the three things I circled were the Gem and Mineral Hall at the LA County Natural History Museum, heat ripples on asphalt, and I think it was like the feeling of being showered and clean after a very, very hot day, a very hot, smoggy day. And so I was trying, the story that I ended up with, we'll see, you'll see which of those things actually like made it into the book, but the story that I was trying to evoke were like the feelings and situations in, that evoke certain emotions there. And again, I ended up with 10 drafts of this book. I wrote 10 drafts of this book before I queried. And then after I landed with my agent, he and I had two more rounds of revisions. And then there were the edits after, I went on submission and then got the book deal. So this story was a very, very, very different book when I wrote my terrible first draft to what it is now. And so that is, yeah, that's the story, Morning Glory.
Are you an improv person when you write? Like, do you have a lot of planning or do you stumble through things with your character?
So, okay, I used to be a total pantser. Like, I would just write, see where it took me. And I still have an element of that. My first draft was, I say that I rage pantsed my way through my first draft because I thought I wasn't going to be able to work on this book until after my wedding in April 2020. Well, we all know what happened in early 2020. So suddenly there I was with a lot more time on my hands at home with a canceled wedding. And so I just wrote rage pants my way through that first draft. And then I realized there is some merit to outlining at least the plots, the plot beats. Now I say I like to write like Larry David tapes Curb Your Enthusiasm. I have an idea of where each scene or each beat is supposed to end. Like I have a rough idea of where it's supposed to end and what's generally supposed to happen. How it gets there when I'm drafting, I'd pants that. I make that up as I go. And I go back to, like I said earlier, while I'm doing that drafting process, I do go back on that improv brain of if this, then what? Like, okay, if this thing is true, if this thing has just happened, what else is true? What would be the logical conclusion of what happened? And by the way, the ending of Be Well is in my brain the logical conclusion, like taken to the extreme logical conclusion of what Anne falls into and what she will do to keep it.
Wow, I hadn't actually thought of it that way necessarily, but I don't want to say what that was because then
Yeah, you want
give
people to read the book, right?
away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm so curious. Like, was the ending a surprise to you, or did you think, okay, yeah, I could see this happening?
It was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't really know where it was going to go. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere good. But then I don't know. I don't want to say that the end went somewhere good or went somewhere bad.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I
Okay.
was definitely surprised, but also at the same time, just sort of knowing how these communities grow and how parasocial relationships work
Hmm.
and how these communities come together, I was like, okay, sure.
Sure.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about, because you did mention them earlier, is I mean, so the televangelist father was as much of a hypocrite as one can imagine. And there were some
Right.
there were some scenes that were they were so sad and so funny at the same time, but also sad because I was like, oh my God, dude, like you've
Hmm.
got to be kidding.
Yeah.
But I did really like the mother and I really liked her brother. I liked
Yeah.
both of them a lot. And one
Thank
of the
you.
things that I felt for Anne or Annalise, or, I felt for her because I understand wanting to move past a life that you were just like, this is not how I want to be.
Hmm.
You want to improve upon yourself. Things were obviously not fun for her where she grew up.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like I don't know, like maybe it was a tough job market. My husband was out of work during that job market, by the
Oof.
way. He
Yeah.
lost his job
So sorry.
in January of 2009.
Oof.
He ended up going back to school for a new
Hmm.
career, so that worked out. But the job market was really, really rough, especially for people, in Anne's field.
Hmm.
And it just sucked. But I also know some people who took part-time retail jobs at like the supermarket or
Yeah. You did what you had to
GameStop,
do.
did what
Yeah.
they had to do. So y- there was also that other side of it where she was looking down on what her mother did,
Had
or
to do. Yeah.
yeah, and looking down on what her brother did. They were very impressed by how she was determined not to fall back under her father's
Hmm.
circle of influence, but at the same time, she probably could have worked some part-time positions. It might have not been glamorous. It might have
No.
not gotten her to live where she needed to live, which again was kind of another sad situation because I don't particularly think that her friend was the best friend,
No.
although, yeah,
Yeah.
at all. But there was a little bit of that, sort of, well, I'm better than this. And her mom and her brother were good people.
They are. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like them.
they were
I
great.
like Sam. I like Diane. Like they're, I when my mom was reading this book, actually, she did, she's like, okay, I have to ask, is there anything from me in the mom? And I said, yes. I took the best elements of some of our conversations, even on the hard stuff, and I infused that in there. And yeah, her mom is not always, the syrupy, nicest, kindest person, but, at the same time, she tells it like it is from her perspective. And I like them both, even though Anne looks down on them for a bit. Like I think, yeah, I'm glad that you liked them both. And yes, I like to say that Anne, the protagonist, is based on some of my worst impulses when I was 22 years old. I too, didn't want to be like anywhere like where I grew up. I was beyond that. I was done with that. But I've learned as I've gotten older that it's like, yes, you can want to get out, but also you can be curious about what motivates people to stay. You can try to understand, like the idea of like distancing yourself from everything, like that's kind of more of a juvenile, not fully frontal lobe formed way of approaching it. It's like, I for a long time thought I was like, oh, I have to distance myself from all things to do with where I grew up. And it's like, no, I don't. I can, yeah, I can not move back. I can be someone else, but I can also embrace part of where I came from. I can look at it, with curiosity. I can, so that's part of what I like to do in my writing too. My next book actually is based So I grew up in Orange County, California, which is a silly place in so many ways. It's got this, reality show kind of thing going for it. But that's South Orange County. We don't talk about South Orange County. North Orange County is a bit more like deserty, suburby, evangelically. It's a strange little corner of California. It is in many ways part of the Bible Belt of Southern California in some respects, but it's evolved in many ways. It's got its own culture. But when I was younger, I was just like, I don't want anything more to do with this. I am going to be a sophisticated city LA person. And that is where a lot of but again, my worst impulses when I was 22. That is what's part of Ant. Because of course, a lot of people they hear what the book is about and they go, "Oh my God, is it autobiographical?" I'm like, "No, I never joined a cult. I never did anything like Anne does in the book." But she is based on, I entertained with the improv brain. Like, what would worst impulses Sarah at 22 do in this situation?
Well, thank you so much. I loved it.
Oh,
I
I'm so
really,
glad.
really did. It
Thank
was
you.
a good combination of all the things that I like to read about.
What are
And
your favorite things you like to read about?
oh my goodness, I have the weirdest taste. I
Love
like
it.
reading. I like reading about cults, but not necessarily the cults that everybody considers a cult. I think that, as you said, I think people are drawn to these communities. So really more like things like toxic friendships,
Hmm.
um, relationships that are askew,
Hmm.
situations that are askew. I do read a lot of horror, but this was like just a good, it was a good look at that community, the wellness community, especially because I I see it so much. And there's this world of Instagram
Hmm.
therapists
Hmm.
and, I've kind of walked some new agey circles myself. And
Yeah.
luckily for me, and I don't want to say I could never be taken in or whatever, but I
Hmm.
don't know, like when things got a little weird, I'd be like, yeah, no, not really. Like, no, I don't need to pay $150 to be treated for Reiki. Like, no offense if that's your
No offense to
thing.
Reiki, but
But,
also,
it's like, okay, I tried it. And, like that was I got a nice rest, but I don't, like I don't need treatment, like it's not,
yeah.
yeah. Like to me, I'm like, you're kind of like using things to drag me in to make me feel like I
Hmm.
need this for my life, and I don't. It was
Yeah.
just a nice meditation.
Yeah.
Um,
I studied
but
the cycles of grift, by the way. There is an
oh,
actual like grift cycle
is
that, and
there?
I outlined certain points of the book when I was revising to make sure that they matched up with like the cycle of grift.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up, the cycle of grift.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember the exact steps, but like one of them is like creating a sense of urgency.
Mhm.
And then, this is one that especially applies to cult leaders, which is it's like making the isolating your target
Mhm.
by, telling them that their friends and family just don't understand
Yep.
them the way that you do.
Yep.
And yeah, so that was fascinating. That was like a fascinating layer to put over the book. But yeah, yeah, sorry, I just had to note
No,
that.
but I mean, again, that's one of my special interests, I would say, would be
Awesome.
something like that.
Awesome.
Because I do find that really interesting. And I find it interesting how people are affected by that. It really was a fun book. I do kind of wonder now because there are a few books out there that are sort of wellness community.
Hmm.
There's some wellness community horror that I've read. I
Ooh,
wouldn't
yeah.
necessarily say that this is horror, but
No.
it's definitely satirical, and
Mhm.
it's like it doesn't have like, well, there's really no gore in it.
No,
Really?
minimal
No,
gore.
not much. Not
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
But there are elements there. And I think this hit my buttons. This
Hey,
hit all the right buttons for me. So check
hooray. I'm
out
so
Be
glad.
Well. Really,
Yeah,
it's super fun.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I liked
Check
it.
out Be Well. I'm holding it up.
Yes, yes. And the cover's really nice too.
Thank you.
All right. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. I was here with Sarah Flocken, the author of Be Well. Do you have a title for your next book?
Yeah, well, I have a working title. I am not sure. Okay. So you say you like horror. I will leave you with this. My next book involves zombies,
Yeah.
but in an unexpected way.
That's the kind of zombie I like. I'm not really a big fan of you can't take for me, I can't take zombies too seriously. Like
No.
if it's too serious, I get bored. I need the Shaun of the Dead or the Zombie Land or just something a little askew because
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
My comps for this, well, I need to figure out some more recent comps.
Mhm.
But right now the vibes, I say it's a cross between Shaun of the Dead and Death Becomes Her.
Oh,
But if the protagonist of Election, Tracy Flick from Election by Tom Perrotta were dropped in.
okay. We are going to be best book friends because everything about that also hits the buttons that I like. I hear you're going to be around here on book tour.
Yes, I have a book tour event on Long Island. My Long Islander husband has corrected me many times and said, no, it is not in Long Island. It is
It's
on
on Long
Long
Island.
Island.
Record scratch. Nails on the
Yeah,
chalkboard. Long Island.
on Long Island, yes. It is going to be at Next Chapter Books in Huntington, New York on August, let's see, the date, Tuesday, August 25th at Next Chapter Books in
In Huntington,
Huntington,
New
New
York.
York
Yes.
at 7 p.m. So, yes, Next Chapter Books, Tuesday, August 25th, Huntington, New York, 7 p.m. I will be there talking about Be Well, and I'm really excited to be there.
Awesome. I might have to check it out too.
Please do. Please come by. I will email you the link to the event.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so
Amazing.
much. We're going to close
Thank you so much, Jessica.
we're going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.